If you've ever been the only woman, or one of very few, in a leadership position only to realize you're there to check a box and absorb criticism meant for the group, you know the sting of performative inclusion. Maybe you were suddenly appointed the family spokesperson during difficult times, only to get blamed when conversations didn't go perfectly. Or perhaps you were given a prominent role at work or in your relationship, but every decision you made was scrutinized, criticized, or second-guessed. You might have noticed that your visibility came with a target on your back. You were simultaneously elevated and set up to fail.
Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. Try our all-new caramel protein lattes with up to 31 grams of protein and options with no added sugar. Level up your drink at Starbucks.
Welcome back to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'm Lynn, your host. Today we're examining how narcissistic families and partners use performative inclusion to maintain control while appearing progressive and fair. Performative inclusion isn't real inclusion at all. It's a sophisticated control tactic where narcissists elevate women to visible positions, not to honor their capabilities, but to manipulate them more effectively. It creates the illusion of equality and progress while maintaining the same patterns of blame, control, and scapegoating behind the scenes. This dynamic serves multiple purposes for the narcissistic system. First, it provides cover for their controlling behavior. They can point to your leadership role and say, "How can we be sexist? Look, we put her in charge." Second, it sets you up as the perfect scapegoat. When things go wrong, and they will because you're not given real authority or support, all blame flows directly to you. Third, it isolates you from potential allies who might see you as having power when you actually don't. In narcissistic families, you might have been positioned as the responsible one, the family manager or the peacekeeper. They'd praise your competence and maturity, making it seem like recognition of your abilities. But what they were really doing was dumping emotional labor and impossible expectations on you while maintaining plausible deniability about their control. You might have experienced being made the family spokesperson during crises. Suddenly, everyone looked to you to handle difficult conversations, manage relatives, or represent the family publicly. But the moment something didn't go perfectly, the very people who appointed you would criticize your approach, your words, your timing. They'd act like you chose this role rather than admitting they assigned it to you. Or maybe you were given authority over household management, family finances, or coordinating everyone's schedules. It looked like trust and responsibility from the outside. But in reality, every decision you made was questioned. Every system you created was criticized, and every problem that arose became your personal failure. You had all the responsibility, but none of the actual power. The workplace version of this is equally insidious. You might have been the token woman on leadership teams or boards, celebrated publicly for your participation while being undermined privately. Your ideas got ignored in meetings, your concerns were dismissed as overthinking, and when initiatives failed, somehow it traced back to your involvement. In romantic relationships, narcissistic partners use performative inclusion to maintain their image as supportive while actually controlling you. They'll brag about your professional success to friends while privately criticizing your priorities. They'll encourage your leadership roles while creating chaos at home that makes it harder for you to succeed. They position themselves as your biggest supporter publicly while sabotaging you privately. The psychological impact is devastating because it makes you question your own competence. When you're given visible roles but then criticized for how you handle them, you start to internalize the criticism. You think maybe you really aren't qualified, maybe you really do make too many mistakes, maybe you really aren't leadership material. But here's what's actually happening. You're being set up in impossible situations with inadequate support and then blamed for predictable outcomes. You're not given real authority. You're given responsibility without power. There's a crucial difference. Real inclusion means you have genuine influence over decisions, adequate resources to succeed, support when challenges arise, and shared accountability for outcomes. Performative inclusion means you get the title and the blame, but not the tools, support, or actual power to create success. The gaslighting component is particularly cruel. When you point out the impossible nature of your position, they act like you're being ungrateful or making excuses. They remind you that they chose you for this role, as if that choice was about your value rather than their need for a scapegoat. You might have noticed that your visibility in these roles made other people treat you differently too. Family members or colleagues who saw you in leadership positions might have expected you to handle their problems or blamed you when systems didn't work perfectly. The narcissist successfully redirected criticism that should have gone to them directly onto you. The isolation is intentional. When you're positioned as the leader or the capable one, others assume you don't need support. They might even resent you for appearing to have power when you're actually more controlled than anyone else in the system. Here's the reality check. Your competence was real. Your leadership abilities were genuine, but they were exploited rather than celebrated. The narcissistic system needed someone capable enough to handle complex responsibilities, but scapegoated enough to absorb all the blame when things inevitably went wrong. Being chosen for these roles wasn't about your worth. It was about your usefulness to their narrative. They needed someone they could point to as evidence of their fairness while simultaneously having a target for their criticism and control. You deserved real authority, actual support, and shared accountability. You deserved to lead without being undermined. You deserved recognition without manipulation. The performative inclusion wasn't about you not being good enough for real leadership. It was about them needing to maintain control while looking progressive and reasonable to others. So here's something to reflect on. How has your visibility in leadership roles been used as a weapon or shield within your family or relationship dynamics? And what would real support and inclusion have looked like instead? Thanks for being here today and for doing this work. I know talking about scapegoating brings up a lot, and I'm honored you're trusting me with this part of your journey. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure you know about the resources available to support your healing. If you're finding value in these episodes, we have ad-free versions and bonus content over on Supercast at narcissisticabuserecovery.supercast.com. For deeper work, I've created Forward Rising Academy with an intro to narcissistic abuse recovery course, plus somatic healing audio sessions and a grief recovery workbook. You can find all of those at waketheelephant.gumroad.com. And for additional resources, visit our website at movingforwardafterabuse.com. This is Lynn, and this has been another episode of the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'll see you in the next one. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The content shared is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please seek help from a qualified professional or contact a local crisis hotline.